Likutei Torah Parshas EMOR, page Lamed Vav, first column. The pasuk says, "V'heinef asa EMOR." You have to wave the EMOR with the kohen. So he said, "Shh." Hinei ha'EMOR ma'achol sa'irim shomichla de be'ira. The EMOR came from barley. There were only two flour offerings that came from barley: the carbon EMOR and the carbon seita. So it says the carbon. It says that it comes from michla de be'ira, animal food. So he says, which means he has beis meaning malachim. There's two types of angels. There are certain angels that are existing from the beginning of creation. You know, the major guys. And they're existing and they're permanent until the world becomes nothing again. Those are the chayes of the Merkava. In other words, we know Gabriel, Michal, they're certain the main angels. There are malachim that are created every day. And they sing praise, and then they get disappeared. It fell into the neg of biyah. And every day they become revived, rejuvenated, which is shira. Yeah, okay. And they become finished. Like it says in the Gemara, there's a bunch of malachim and Hashem put whatever it means. He put his little finger amongst them, and he burnt them. In other words, the kedusha, they're not like it says in Chassidus, it's brought down in a lot of places, but Chassidus brings down that if there's a group of malachim, and the neshama comes in there, all the malachim with plots, with just non-existent.
One neshama or 10?
One. So what happens? Hashem puts a little thing, a little gilui. Mam et pektan means a very minimal gilui of alukus, and all the malachim get non-existent.
What does it mean that the malachim are going to exist until it goes back to Torah? When is that supposed to happen?
Well, it depends whatever the Gemara means in Sanhedrin. Shnei alafim teo, 1,000 years teo, whatever it means.
So
whatever it means.
It happened already, or it's going to happen?
No, officially it's supposed to happen. Who knows when though? So he said, and it's known. What does it mean? Hashem put his little finger in, amongst them. He said, I know because there was a slight revelation of Hashem over them. More than the level, more than they're very limited. So if there's a drop more of Kedusha than they're able to handle, they become completely non-existent in Elokus. And he says, why does this happen to those malachim? The Rabbi said, he says, why do those malachim deserve to be non-existent? Because it's a pasuk in Tillim, but the Gemara speaks about in Shabbos, that when Moshe Rabbeinu went up to get the Torah at Har Sinai, the malachim said, "Mo enish kisis kerenu." What is this? Who is this guy? Tonight, Chal Shemayim, give us the Torah. So because they complained against Adam Rishon, so Hashem punished them. That those malachim become non-existent.
Is this why they say Serafim?
No, Serafim because they have this level of fiery kedusha. So he says, so from this example we can understand also in the whole concept of refining sparks, which is Machmas Ribi Gili Erin Safaleim. So the same thing in the elevation of sparks. What does it mean, the elevation of sparks? The sparks of Kedusha in all these objects go back to their source. Why? Because when you do a mitzvah with them, or you do something good with them, they become refined. There's a level of Kedusha upon them. They become refined. And that's the Inyan of Elif, Tur, and Dachel, Behema, Rabba, whatever, which is a Malchus, it's called Behema. Bigmatri Ban, Sheba Nechlolim, Abirurim, the Naiga. In other words, like this. There's Ma and Ban. Right? There's different combinations of Yud Ke Vav Ke. So 45 equals Adam, 52 equals Behema. Says the Birurim of Ma, the person, Adam, elevating the sparks of Ban, which represents all the sparks of Kedusha that come into the world. That's the Zan Nikra Behema Rabba. That's called Behema Rabba, right? Shubachon is Kloli, Neged Merkava, Yud Beis Bakar, which are Pratim, Malchus includes everything. And you know, this mimer is, you know what, this is a little bit, you know what, we're going to go to the next one, we're going to go to the next mimer, Lamed Zayin. What?
Which page is it, the next one?
Lamed Zayin. Okay, let's go to a more down-to-earth mimer. Lamed Zayin. Okay. The Kohen should wave them and the lechem of the bikurim before Hashem over the two kvasim, over the two sheep. It's a big Gemara, and it says in the Gemara, Shalechem lemayla. The lechem is on top of the animal. Shemein of hakvasim and malechem biyachad. That you wave the bread with the animals. That means there's a unity between the bread and the animals, and the bread is on top. What it means, that because the cheder is two different species. Kvasim is animal, and lechem is tzemeach, plant life. Yet we're waving them together. So it says like this. Vinei, that's known, ki tachlis kol habriya. What's the whole purpose where Hashem made the world? Liyasayesh bottle la'ayin. That the yesh of the world should be bottled to the ayin. Meaning like this. The world we learned was created yesh mi'ayin. Like we learned the word bara in Hebrew means yesh mi'ayin. Hashem created the world something from nothing. And the function of creation is to make this yesh back into ayin. What does it mean to make the yesh back into ayin? Ayin represents elukus. Yesh represents something which is severed from elukus. It feels itself a separate entity. So the role of creation is to make the yesh back into ayin. Now how does a Jew do that? When a Jew takes a physical object and makes a mitzvah out of it, or eats or drinks it to serve Hashem, so they're making this yesh that Hashem created back into ayin. And in every world, there's bittul hayesh according to the level. Meaning, in Bria, it's less of a yesh than it is in Yetzirah, and less than it is in Asiyah. So every world has its different level of yesh and different level of bittul of the yesh. What's the primary level of bittul? To become bottle, completely bottle, and one with Hashem. To be one with Hashem with a real yichud. No, it's not a yichud, okay, I'm bottle. A real emissary yichud. With the ultimate level of unity, like the Isachtus Eivari Aguf Benefesh Achyunas Asher Mislabish B'Seichel. What type of unity are we talking about? Just like you have, the nefesh comes into the body. And the nefesh is one with the body is one with the nefesh. When the nefesh wants to move the hand moves instantaneously. Doesn't have to think about it, to make a meeting, and it happens instantaneously. Why? Because the hand is completely bottled to the nefesh. So the sad, just like that bittul, that the hand is completely bottled to the goof is bottled to the nefesh, that's exactly the same way the world is bottled to Elokus. That not that the world has to think and meditate and decide, it's automatically bottled to Hashem. That's the ultimate bittul, level of bittul hayesh. Just like it is by the body, that the body is completely bottled to the nefesh. The same thing. The same thing, the whole world should be completely bottled to Elokus. This is the whole purpose of creation. To make the yesh back into ayin. What type of bittul? A complete bittul, like the body is bottled to the nefesh. Okay. Achine beteva adam bittul dasei. Ein kemei bittul zeva dugmasei. There is no real bittul like this in Gashmias. Av lavato retzenim and erotzen achenim bebittul rotzen zeh. There is no physical, besides the body, there is no physical nature, in the nature of a person, you should have such a level of bittul, kilu ein lo rotzen acher klau. There is no such thing in the world that I have no rotzen whatsoever of my own. People have I want, I will, whatever. This nature of ultimate bittul is by animals which are betelis berotzen amanhigam. In other words, like this: a person, because we have free choice, it's not automatic bittul, because I could choose not to be bottled. Animals, by a person you don't have that teva, but by animals you do. Animals are completely bottled to the rider. Animals have no will of their own. When the rider is leading the animal, he's going where the rider leads it. And it's beima with lochol hasheyach b'tziata esim. Ve'in mishanis is tafkidam, and they don't change their purpose. Ki sharshim yisei demadrei kodesh. And which level of kodesh? Madregal yenis ba'erin tzabarchu, where it's bittul ba'erin tzav mamish. Okay? In other words, like this. And he says, even though down here an animal is lower than a person, nevertheless, the bittul that an animal runs by instinct. A person runs not an instinct. A person runs by choices. In that respect, but that's a different level of bittul. Here we're talking about Poshet. The bittul of an animal is more bittul than the bittul of a person. Why? And because we're great and we have free choice, so therefore automatically the bittul is not there. It's a meditated bittul. And therefore the meditated bittul is limited based on the meditation. Based on how much the seichel understands to be bittul, that's how much it is. And he says, Elo, shenaflu lemata mata mi madrega sa'adam, and therefore it's bittul lemata tachas yada adam. Therefore the animal is bittul to the person. But in reality, that's down here because the person is higher than an animal, therefore the animal is bittul to the person. But in Shaidish, in the source, the animal is more bittul than the person. And he says, "V'zeu inyan hakorbanos, shahoyu makriva ma'behem al gabi mizbeach." That's the whole concept of korbanos. taking a behemoth and bringing it out of the mizbeach. Ve'ola chayusa b'mkoda v'shosha, and the chayus of the animal goes back to its original source, which is bittul mamish burning to baruch hu of elokus, and that's why what's the carbon? You burn it, the animal becomes completely consumed in the godly fire of the mizbeach. Complete bittul.
That's why Yaakov did the Tumah.
Well, he was able to do that. They said that karbonis hayu min haboker min hatzei mikol behemo, and not from chayos. Essentially, you can't bring a kosher animal as a carbon, a chaya. I mean, you can't bring a deer as a carbon
Why the Shorish is high?
because shebehema yesh ba bittul yesim in a chaya. Animals are because they're domestic. Behemoths are domestic animals. Chaya is non-domestic. Non-domestic and not as constrained and limited and bottled to the master. And yet even from behemoth, it's not all behemoths. Al piyarov shenim shubam bechinas habitul yosef. The animals that the Torah chose, Bakar Tzain, is more bittul than all the other animals. Why? Ki abakar ipnei sharmi asmo, the level of gvura. And therefore sharmi nagid bekarne and izim are also the level of gvura. Avo kvosim at the level of rachmim. Therefore, Yaakov Avinu, by what it means by Lavan, it says ksavim hifrid Yaakov. Why? Because kvasim are more of a nachmanistic animal, and therefore Yaakov Avinu is a level of rachmim. Ki Yaakov kvasim yesh lahem kol merachmanis. So why are sheep more? Because when they cry out, they have a much more. They're much. He says shema'eder rachmim. The cry of a behemoth doesn't, not a regular behemoth, but when the sheep cry, it like awakens. It's like a rachmanis on them. Why? Because the kvasim come from the level of rachmanis. So therefore, what are the karbanis? Those karbanis that are mushrish in a very lofty level of kedusha. Which is makar rachmim. See, the Acharei is saying like this. In essence, behema has more bittul than Adam. Because ban is a higher level than ma. And sag is even higher, and ab is even higher. So in level, like in the pasuk says, Adam u behema tashi Hashem, that refers to man ban. But ban is behema rabba, right? Which the psukim that say behema rabba, Chassidus explains that's the level of the source of behema, which comes from the name ban, which is higher than ma. So therefore, the whole inyan of karbanis is to reveal the shadish of those animals that come from a lofty level. Down here, because they originated higher, fell down lower. But in essence, they're higher. Therefore, from those kvasim coming down, and not only that, sheep are much more weaker animals than a shor or a bakar. So therefore you see within them the level of bittul. And then he says even more in the brackets that kvasim have wool, which comes even from a higher level. Okay, so he says like this, that the whole inyan of a world of yesh mi'ayin is to make the ayin back into the yesh. I mean the yesh back into the ayin, to make the world bottle. And he says that has to be a level of bittul, like the bittul of a neshama in a guf, that the guf is completely bottled to the neshama. And this you see more by animals than by people, because they come from a higher source.
I understand that when the show comes down here, the technology go up higher.
Right.
So why this
to go even higher.
Higher than Asilut?
Elokus is Ein Sof.
Higher than Asilut?
The greatest of neshamis, yeah. Lag Ba'im is Yortzeit Rashbi. Rashbi was a super high neshama, and every Yortzeit the neshama goes higher. Is so high. How can the neshama keep going higher and higher?
From the outside.
Yeah, but how can they go higher if they're already in the highest? The answer is Elokus is Ein Sof. There is no such thing as the highest. You can keep going. And the truth of the matter is, Chazal say, "En la menucha lo ba'elam hazav lo ba'elam haba," right? That they're always going up. So what happens on the yard site? It's a jump up, not a gradual up. But they were constantly going higher and higher. That's why the Rebbe was, when that guy said that the Friedrich Rebbe has already passed away, who knows how many years, he has nothing to do with the books anymore. Just for him. The Rebbe was screaming, what are you talking? The Rebbe was mamish, paining, screaming. He said, what are you talking about? When the neshama, the higher it gets, the more it is in the world, because it's less restricted. Like the Zohar says, we say in Minor Lashon, the Alter brings it down in Tanya, Tzimach of Zayin, that Ishtakach Yatimi b'chayayil. Ishtakach b'ayalma Yatimi b'chayayil. A tzaddik in this world, after he passes away, is more in this world than when he's alive. When he's alive, he's limited in the body, in a certain place. Now he's not limited at all. And every yahrzeit that Rebbe explains, he's even more in the world, not less.
So someone is passed on 20, 30, 40 years. Every yard site, they go higher and higher and higher.
Why do you think you say Kaddish in a yahrzeit?
Of course.
I read during, for the first year, you say Kaddish to save the person from punishment of Gehenna. Correct? That's why we stop at 11 months, because Mara says if Rishonim burn in hell 12 months, and we don't want to say my parent was a Russia, then I have to say Kaddish for 12 months. Okay? So we stop after 11, again, Sfardim do different customs, whatever. Yeah? We stop a week or whatever. So then what happens on the yahrzeit? Why do you say Kaddish? It's not in Gehenna anymore. So the Ian of Kaddish does two things. Kaddish saves from punishment, and Kaddish helps in the elevation of the neshama on Gan Eden, in Gan Eden. Just like a mikveh does two things. If you're tamei, it removes impurity. And if you're pure, mikveh makes you even more holy. Kohen Gadol went to the mikveh 5 times in Yom Kippur. He wasn't tamei 5 times. Why did he go to mikveh 5 times in Yom Kippur? Because it's an elevation. Mikveh does two things. It takes off tumah, and it elevates you to higher. Same thing with Kaddish. It protects you from punishment of Gehenna. Then afterwards, it helps in the elevation of the neshama. Neshama goes up. Like we said, it's not a gradual elevation. It's a jump up to a much higher level. So over there, he needs help.
So after 20, 30 years, they're still in contact with this world, with the family, and so on and so forth?
That's what it says in the Zohar. Ishtakach b'hai alma yatimi b'chayei. He's more found in this world than when he was alive. In a different level. What?
Our grandfathers are still in touch.
Yeah, he's looking down and they're turning over in the graves, yes. Looking at us, yes. That's the truth. What do you think? It's not the reality, they're turning over in the graves. This is what I created.
I look at the pictures, they're all
This doesn't mean anything. A guy once walked into a restaurant. The guy is clean shaven, the owner. So he says, "Is the mashgiach here?" The guy shows him the picture. He says, "This is my grandfather." So the guy says to him, If he would be here and you'd be in the picture, I would trust it. Says, but yeah, there's still a connection. That's what it says in the Zohar, you know.
The 10th generation grandfather is still in touch with us.
Other Menishim still in touch with us. Why not? Because those levels already, it's above time and place, really. Let me ask you a question. A person passed away 50 years ago. Yeah? Why are you going to the grave?
Why do we go to the grave?
If they're not there, if they're way up there somewhere, go here to the table and do the same thing. What are you going to the grave for?
Part of him is there.
What part? You just said he's not there. What do you mean part of him is there? Right now it's a skeleton.
No, not the Gashmi, the Ruchni.
Ruchni is by a physical grave? That's exactly what I'm saying. It is, but according to you, it's not.
No, I'm not saying.
You're saying he died 50 years ago. What does it have to do with this?
I asked the question.
I answered the answer.
Now, is it true that Chaya